Welcome to the Supported Living Property Podcast with your host, me, Lisa Brown, the place to learn about supported living property investing.
Hi, it's great to have you both here today. Thank you for joining me. For people who don't know you, Peter, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Peter Licourinos. I've been in property for 24 years. I've run an estate agency. I've run various property investor clubs. I'm an investor myself, and I've bought probably near on 1,000 properties for clients and property investors over the last 15 years. My background growing up, my parents were carers. They run a mentally handicapped hospital, Churchill House in Bracknell. They fostered for over 35 years as well. So I've always had a sort of caring background, if you like, and I've always wanted to bring that into what I do and work with my sort of superpower, which is property. About 7 years ago, I found out I had a brain tumour by complete chance, which sort of prompted me on recovery to change direction and really just live my dreams and do what I wanted to do what I wanted to do and nothing else. So from there, I created my own property investors club where we wanted to help other people. And we started doing luxury accommodation that the UK had never seen before, which was extremely popular. From that, I wanted to adapt my luxury accommodation and feel from learning about supported living and children homes, what I felt was a big gap in the market for supported living and children homes, where we offer the children best possible accommodation, not the accommodation they've been used to, the best possible services and care, not the services and care they've been used to. And that was evident on the more research. You're smiling because you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
The more research I did. I then met an incredible man called Brian Murphy. Brian already was in the space working with children and alternative provisions. And he had a dream. He always said to me, the first thing he said to me was, it broke his heart when he was caring for kids in the day. And then in the evenings, he was sending them back to broken homes and to trouble. And he couldn't care as much as he wanted to. And I remember I said, well, why don't we change that? I've got this dream, you've got this vision. Let's make it a reality. And the guy that introduced Brian and I, Richard Williams, he had a care background as well. And we all just came together and we created Project Home.
And obviously we've got Rob here as well. So Rob, do you want to introduce yourself and tell people a bit about you?
Well, so my name's Rob Sherwood. Slightly different to Pete in my background, that I haven't always been involved in property. Like to think I'm an entrepreneur in the fact I left university at 20, set my own businesses, which are involved in sports coaching, childcare. And through that, I like to think they're very successful. And I got into property around about 30 years old, starting investing myself. Through working in the childcare system, that's when I met Brian, who Pete's very briefly spoken about. So we were in the process of setting up our own alternative provision for children that are 6 to 12 years old. And Brian had a provision that was for children that were 12 plus. So we kind of put our minds together, thought, well, let's create something that will look after children for longer if needed. Obviously, the whole idea of setting up alternative provision is that we don't keep the children in our care. We kind of look after them for 12 weeks and then we put them back into mainstream education, but sometimes it just isn't possible. So through that, that's when I met with Peter and Rich, and we set up Project Home. And we've kind of never looked back.
Just to add to what Rob said, he's very humble in terms of what he created. He also created another company, Get Active, which is an incredible business in itself. But running the Alt-Prov group and Project Home, we knew we had two incredible separate companies. And then we decided to merge the companies together. And the idea was, through Project Home, we can offer children accommodation between 8 and 16, 16 and 18, and 18 and 24. But the company that Rob's alluded to, the Alt-Prov group, where they do care for children, they do apprenticeships, it meant we could do something that had never been seen in the UK before. And that is offer a child and a young adult a service of life from start to finish in terms of the system. So from 8 years old to 24, if they can't find permanent foster care or permanent adoption parents, they can come back and they have that safeguard of Project Home, but they also have that alternative provision where we can help them throughout the day and the alternative provisions we offer. And at the sort of later parts of their adult life, sort of in their 20s, we can set them up with apprenticeships and get them into jobs and schemes like that. So I think that's our overall dream, is from start to finish to be able to cater and offer children and young adults everything they could possibly need.
It's understanding that mainstream education works for every single child. So every single child's different. Every single child's passion may be different. They may not be able to sit still for 20 minutes or so in class. So we take them, they can learn a trade, they can learn plastering, decorating, plumbing, whatever it may be. We teach them a trade and they actually come out with something. So it's not like other alternative provision or education that they come away with absolutely nothing. They'll come away with an apprenticeship and a traineeship so they can go on to work in a trade, and if needs be, as we've talked about Project Home, we can put them in homes as well. So there's just, we like to think we're offering so much opportunity for these children and young adults that just wasn't there, to be honest, 4 or 5 years ago.
You've mentioned the word alternative provision quite a few times, and it might be something that people aren't familiar with. Do you want to just explain what you mean by alternative provision?
Of course, so it's not necessarily education. It's more, we take children out of school that are either going to be expelled or are expelled or just can't cope with mainstream education. So there are special schools around the UK, but they are full and there's not enough of them. So rather than a school just excluding a child, which looks bad for them, and then where's the child going to go? We take them in, we can take them up to about 20 hours a week, and we try to do some form of education, but it's all based around that child's like. So 9 times out of 10, it tends to be sport is the driving factor. So it might be, I don't know, we've got a child that needs to do his English homework. If you ask him to read a book or write a book, he isn't going to do it. But if you say, maybe, can you write a report on last night's football, then they might get involved and they might have an interest in it. So it's just trying to engage that child, find out what their passion is, because there will be something, and champion that child and find out what they want to do and direct them in the right direction.
And then the intention is that they would then go back into school. Is that the kind of
that's always our intention, and that's something we're quite passionate about, because there are other people that do this, but it tends to be they look after a child for 12 weeks and then they get them engaged, they do a good job, and then they basically just drop them back at their school and just hope miracles are going to happen. Whereas we'll do 12 weeks with this child, and then we'll also go into their school as well and spend 3-4 weeks, however long it's needed, to reintegrate that child, because it's a massive change coming from an alternative provision that's got maybe 30 children in it to a mainstream school that's got 1,000 children in it. So we'll spend time with that child. We'll spend time with them at lunch, which is always a tricky time because they might not have great social skills, kind of thing. So we just mentor them and support them as best as we can to make sure they can get back into education, because at the end of the day, we want children to be in full-time education. We want children to get their GCSEs, their A-levels, whatever it may be. But sometimes it just doesn't work, so we're that other option for them.
And then what you're providing in this kind of like this lifespan, if you like, of childhood and young adulthood is quite unique, and that's what you're saying is different, isn't it? Because I know, you know, listeners to the podcast will have heard stories of people who've been through the care system and have had, you know, tens, sometimes hundreds of changes of accommodation and carers within their, you know, really very short times of their childhood, which is obviously incredibly disruptive.
I think that's where my passion to do this came from, Lisa. My parents were foster carers, and I saw so many children come and go when they were respite caring, but also from a permanent basis, I saw the difference it made when children have a consistent, they have love, they have a family environment, consistency, continuity in their lives. Children change. And I guess our dream is to be able to offer that at any stage of a children's life. And that's where the story group came from, as the group of companies, the holding company now, if you like.
That sounds brilliant. And I think from, obviously, this is the property, you know, the supported living property podcast. So for those children who need to be actually, you know, in a property and housed, what does that property look like? What, I know you talked about the fact you're passionate about the quality of those properties. So tell me what is the property like for someone who's never been into something like this? What does it look like?
I think one of the things we wanted to do differently when I was doing a lot of research on supported living a few years ago is that the quality of housing was very poor. I wanted to give every child and young adult a home that they could be proud of. And we wanted to give them luxury accommodation because they deserve it as much as anybody else. So the houses all have big bedrooms. All the bedrooms have good quality furniture, double beds, good quality wardrobes, desks, smart televisions, even Wi-Fi, strong Wi-Fi and Cat6, so they can be working and learning in their rooms. They have creative rooms where they can be doing arts and crafts, drawings, a gaming room. Some of them have outdoor gym and sport facilities as well. The houses will have meeting rooms, so we can meet with their social workers. You name it, we force it, and we try and literally provide houses that nobody else has ever seen from. And as and when the councils have come down, our launch date with the Bracknell MP, everyone's amazed, and I don't say that lightly. Most brought to tears with the accommodation and the furniture and the themed properties that we're providing, and it's quite incredible.
Fantastic. And how big is this? So people kind of have an image, don't they, of what a children's home is, and it's often somewhere between sort of something from the Minions and something out of Annie. Generally, that's people's image of a children's home. Tell me what actually is this property?
I think this is really important, and there's, as you know, a breakdown on supported living homes and children homes. Children homes between children between 8 and 16, then you've got that gap between 16 and 18 where we do something different, and then you've got the supported living homes between the children between 18 and 24, and then you have obviously the variety of different needs, and depending on the needs will probably change the way that we shape the house. But when we met with Ofsted and when we met with all the specialist providers and regulators, they helped us put together the properties very differently to what they've had in the past.
So how many children, are we talking about a house that from the outside just looks like a family home, are we?
Yes, we're trying to change things in line with what the regulators and Ofsted want. And they want children to go into family houses. They want these homes to be family units, so they can feel like they are part of the family. So that tends for a children home to be around 4 to 5 children, never any more. And for a supported living home, 5 to 6 children, again, never more. I think in some of the other homes locally, you can see that they're quite old fashioned. And when you've got 10 to 12 to 13 children in a property, it doesn't feel like a home. I think that's what we're trying to change, isn't it?
I think Peter hit the nail on the head when he said it's a family home, because the fact that a lot of these children and young adults come from broken families, they've never experienced family life before, so all sitting down eating together at the same time, sitting around watching a film, little things like that we probably take for granted. These people and young adults have never ever experienced that before, so that's what we're really trying to do, and it also fits in with the staffing as well that are working in those.
And so the staff, I think, again, there's often a misunderstanding, isn't there, about staffing, and you'll have staff on a shift basis, won't you, who are there supporting the children and young people in the homes?
Yeah, and it's the consistency of staff. So you've got the same staff there, because again, these children, young adults need the consistency. They need to be able to relate to these people as well, and they need to be able to talk to them about their struggles. So yeah, the staff work on a shift basis, but it's the same staff on a continuous basis.
I think for me, Lisa, one of the things that was evident when I was doing my research was a lot of the supported living homes, especially, some are understaffed, some don't have any staff. And where we wanted to offer something different is the first thing we did is get the best care manager, Mark. He's incredible, absolutely amazing. With him, we built a team, and we overstaffed the first home to make sure that we were doing it completely differently to anyone else. And I think we're looking at children before profits, and I think hopefully that can be an example to other investors out there and other people out there, because I think it's the other way around on many occasions, and it should be children before profits. There are still profits to be made. Everybody has to make a profit, otherwise they wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
But if you put the children first, then you're on the right road, in my opinion.
And what's the difference between the children's homes, which are the under 16s, and then your provision for sort of 16 to 18-year-olds? What's the difference? I know you said you might have slightly more people in the property.
Well, you know yourself, there's a big difference with younger children. The homes are Ofsted registered, and Ofsted will have strong guidelines that you've got to follow. So the homes will be built completely differently. You have to have different levels of outbreak rooms, and different facilities, so they're completely different. And if you're going into supported living, that's one thing. If you're going into children's homes, that's a completely different ball game, and you need to make sure you research both and make sure you get the right advice on both. But again, with supported living, it depends on what children you're going to be supporting, or what young adults you're going to be supporting, and what needs they have, and ensuring that you're overqualified before you just think you can put young adults into a house. It's not that simple. And a lot of people think they can turn a HMO into a supported living house, and you can. However, sometimes the doors are different, the lighting needs to be different, the facilities, the rooms need to be different. So much to think about. And I think my advice to anybody looking to get into this space is join a community like yours, because you offer everybody that they would need to help them. But go out there and get the best education you can behind it. There's so much you need to learn, and perhaps try a niche at the beginning and say, we're going to do supported living, we'll stick to that, we'll learn what we need to, we'll execute that really well, and then perhaps we're looking to going into supported living for different type of young adults, or then children homes. But you need to get the right education. It's a minefield out there if it's not done properly.
And obviously the implications of doing it badly, are really significant, aren't they? For the people who are living in the properties. And, it's all about, at the end of the day, it's about that should be your main driver, doing that well and making a difference with it. What challenges have you encountered in setting this up? I feel like this could be a very long list, but tell me what challenges there have been.
Where do we start and where do we end? I mean, there has been so many challenges. I mean, the greatest thing's been working with all the local councils, because they're amazing people working in the councils, and all they want to do is great things. And the reaction to what we've been doing and the homes we've been providing has been absolutely brilliant. And perhaps we thought that was going to be one of the hardest things, but it's been one of the easiest. Okay. I think finding the right investors, not any investors, so they buy into the project and they're doing it for the right reasons. We've wanted to purchase the properties, and yourself, there's an open book of problems when it comes to mortgages, planning permissions, certificate of lawful use. It's very difficult to find the right properties, so it's not been easy to find the right properties. And we're really passionate about doing it the right way, Lisa. We didn't want to do rent to rent, because the majority of rent to rent supported living houses, the mortgage providers don't really know what they're doing. So there's a big risk there that people are not talking about, and they're pretending it doesn't exist, and it does. So we either wanted to purchase the properties ourselves, or we wanted an investor on board that would be purchasing the properties and really coming on board with what we're doing. And that's worked well, but it has obviously come with challenges. And speaking to your finance guys really helped. They were part of our journey at the beginning, which was brilliant. And we've got some incredible people on board now. And I think there's been a lot of other problems as well, hasn't there?
I think we mentioned, or Peter mentioned a while ago, it's children before profit, which in the first few houses is something we've really emphasised. And we can't lie, financially it's tricky, because to start with, the homes are empty to start with, because we had to furnish it, and then we show all the local MPs around, we show the local authorities around. So it's a house that's a lovely house that's empty. Then one child moves, then two, then but at no time have we ever cut costs. We've always made sure it is the best provision these children can have. And Peter mentioned the staff as well. We had all the staff. We had 5 staff members in this house with no children, just learning everything, making sure they knew what's going to be provided, making sure they knew inside out about these children that were going to be joining them, because there's a lot that goes into it. They've all got a story, and it's a lot of them, it's a tricky story. So from a financial point of view, it's not been easy. So it's not, don't want anybody thinking, I can just go and buy a house and stick a few children in, and then we'll make some money straight away, because that certainly is not the case. And you're looking after children, and it's their lives. These aren't 4 or 5-year-olds where things can change. This is people that can be exploited very quickly by the wrong people.
I think, and just to touch on what Rob said, I think a lot of people sometimes jump on the bandwagon to these words, supported living, children homes, and some of them look at it as a get rich quick scheme, like they do property investing. And Rob's absolutely right, it's really not. And yes, at some point you have to make profit, as I alluded to earlier, But I can honestly say that for the first year of this project together, we haven't made money. We haven't done it for money. And as Rob said, the children have always come before profit. So anybody looking to get into this, please get into it for the right reasons, and then the path will take you in the right direction. If you get into it in the wrong reasons, you will cut corners unknowingly, and you will come up against big problems later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It's been really, really helpful. Thank you for sharing your journey, and really excited to see where you go with this and what happens next. And we'll put your contact details in the show notes so people can get hold of you if they want to. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lisa.